welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Jade Shinyu and I help people reclaim back their power physically, mentally and spiritually. Now today I'm going to be discussing a really important topic that has been a complete game changer for myself and other people that I know, and it's basically really understanding that all mental, physical and even spiritual illness is caused by only three things, the three T's, okay? Now, I learned this from someone called Bruce Lipton. I highly recommend checking him out, especially his book, The Biology of Belief, and it will give you way more in-depth information about this topic, all to do with epigenetics. But basically, with any sort of illness, only three things cause it. And those are either toxins, so number one, toxins, number two is thoughts, and number three is trauma. So it's only the three T's that cause all illness within the mind and the body. Now, when you look at what they are, toxins, thoughts, trauma, it literally is mind, body, spirit. So this is why I always tell people that you need to balance and look at all three elements of yourself, your mind, your body, and your spirit. Because if any one of those is out of whack, if any one of those is sick or has anything wrong with it, then it will affect all other ones. It will affect the other two. So if you can imagine your mind, body, spirit as like a triangle table, and each one has a leg. If one of the legs is broken, the whole thing will tip over. So this is why it's really important to analyze and see what catalyst, what thing is causing your current sickness. And this includes chronic illness, especially chronic illness. So you have to self-analyze and really address which thing, is it your body, your mind, or your spirit, or sometimes they overlap, so it can be all three or just two. What is actually causing the illness, etc. Before I get more into the video, I also do have a really special announcement that my Patreon, The Goddess Coven, is now live. And currently I have one video uploaded all to do with what you need to heal. So basically revealing through a pick a card, tarot, oracle reading, what is actually blocking you to help you actually find out what you need to heal. So I will link that down below in the description box. So number one, with toxins, this is all to do with the body, the physical, okay? So there are many things that can unfortunately affect the body. Massively toxins within food, water, your environment, and this can also be even negative energy, toxic energy from humans, from people, and that sort of thing as well. But it's more so to do with the body. So if you're exposed to something that's obviously very poisonous, if you're consuming a toxic chemical for years and years, every day, if you're on drugs, alcohol, smoking, anything like that, even drinking tap water, it's full of heavy metals, full of mercury, full of fluoride. There's so many things that unfortunately affect the body in such a negative way and make it sick. So this is always the number one thing that you need to address if you have any sort of mental health condition, any sort of physical chronic illness, or even depression, because it's all connected. All illnesses are connected to your mind, body and spirit. No matter what you've been taught, they're always connected. So the first thing is always, have a detox, clean up your diet, try going vegan, cutting out meat, cutting out junk foods, just cutting back on anything that's going to be negatively impacting you. Even take note of what deodorant are you using. There's so many toxic deodorants. I never use sprays. I always use very natural, 100% natural cosmetics. Even with makeup, look at the shampoos you're using. Unfortunately, toxic chemicals are everywhere, everywhere. And it's not about being paranoid, it's just about being aware. Do your best to try and avoid overloading your body with all these toxic chemicals. Even with cleaning products, incense, make sure you use 100% pure incense. It's just basically trying to be as natural as possible. Try to use things that are very clean ingredients, natural ingredients. Stay away from cheap things, and even with candles, be careful, because if you light a toxic candle, you're just inhaling that in and it will have an effect on your body, especially over time. So try to be as pure as possible within your diet, what you put on your skin. You know, even fake tan, try to use natural fake tans. There's so many things that you have to be aware of. And of course, the obvious ones have to do with drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. And number 2 is thoughts. So people don't really, I think, accept how powerful their thoughts are. So if you're someone who, for example, has a very clean diet, you're eating really well, you know, you work out, you look after yourself, you don't overload your body with toxic chemicals, but you're very pessimistic, you're very negative, you have a lot of self-hatred, so self-love is very important here. You basically always think the worst is going to happen, you always worry about things, you have a very low self-esteem. So you always negatively talk about yourself, or you think very negative thoughts about yourself. This is literally like hexing yourself. This is literally the same as like self-harm, but within your mind. So this can cause illness, physical illness even, and especially mental health problems, especially depression. Depression can be caused by multiple things. You know, it's heavily linked to the gut, you know, problems, gut health. If your gut's fine, you know, it's normally linked to either trauma or very negative thoughts about yourself. And again, it's always connected, because most of the time people who have very negative thoughts is because they've been through some sort of trauma, which I'll get to in a bit. But this is why, you know, subliminals, very powerful. Meditation is vital for this. I've seen, just even with myself, as soon as I consistently meditate, my thoughts start to get far more positive. I'm way more chill, zen, calm. You know, your anger and fear, normally fear, they don't get the better of you. So really paying attention to what are you thinking every day. And so this is really why it's important to be aware of what you're consuming, because that has an impact on your subconscious brain all the time and consistently. So if you're someone who, and the people you're around, so if you're someone who is consistently consuming negative drama, the news, even stupid things like EastEnders, you know, dramas that are always negative, always doom and gloom. If you're watching, you know, really dark films all the time, listening to really depressing music, you know, anything like that, if you're consistently doing that, even scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, even YouTube, if you're just constantly consuming negativity, that's what your mind will become. And not just negative, but even like victim mode. If you're someone who always watches things that basically justify you staying as a victim, then you're constantly going to be a victim. You're never going to break free. You're never going to be healed. You're never going to get mentally strong. So you need to consume content that actually makes you mentally strong. Because if you're like surrounding yourself with that sort of thing, that's what you get trapped in. And it's the same with people. If you're friends with very low vibrational people who are just not on the same page as you, who give in to all that bullshit, who consume very negative things, and they talk about very negative, low vibrational things, you become that energy. So this is why, you know, the spiritual path can sometimes be uncomfortable, because you must detox and purge yourself away from all of that energy. This is what I call spiritual hygiene. Otherwise, you become what you're surrounded by, and it can be detrimental to your path, to your mental health, to your whole life. So this is where you have to be like, really step into that warrior mindset and choose to be strong. Choose to focus on content that actually pushes you to grow, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And also have self-love. You must implement self-love practices. You must stop being your worst enemy, because people will come and go in your life all the time. But the only person that's going to stay next to you until the day you die is, of course, yourself. So you have to be your biggest supporter, your best friend. You must implement that self-love in order to just have a good well-being mentally and, of course, physically. Because if you have a lot of self-hatred, you're going to manifest getting physically ill sooner or later. And number 3 is trauma. So trauma is very interesting, because when the brain goes through a traumatic experience, it is the only thing that completely rewires your whole brain instantly. So this is why it's so severe and can completely destroy someone's life. I know from my own experience how powerful it can be. And unfortunately, it's normally for the worst. So this is why, you know, when someone goes through something so extreme, you know, they can be the happiest person, for example, and then bam, they go through like, you know, a car crash, you know, something really that terrified them, something very traumatic. And then from that day on, they can be having extreme phobia of cars. They never want to get in a car. They have PTSD over it. You know, they never want to drive again. They have extreme anxiety over it. So that's just one, you know, simple example, but there's so many things that can happen. So this is the only thing that completely rewires your brain. And then it puts your whole nervous system massively under stress, because you will now be in fight or flight, sometimes for months, even years at a time. And I know this from my own experience, especially when it comes to toxic relationships. So many people accumulate trauma from narcissistic abuse, and then it just keeps their whole body shut down in fight or flight. And this actually makes you sick. This keeps you from healing. And I know this from my own experience. And it doesn't matter how much you meditate, try to work on your mental health. It doesn't matter how much you eat healthy, work out. You know, if you have your mind and body, so your thoughts and your toxins are under control, but you are going through some sort of trauma, it will block the rest of it. So this is why all three need to be looked at. All three need to be addressed. Because with trauma, it's such a deeply rooted thing, massively in the subconscious brain. And if you're unfortunately someone who went through a lot of childhood trauma, you'll be playing out that same trauma response and triggers all throughout your adulthood. Because when you're between the ages of 0 and 7, if you went through anything between them ages, that will become a very deep rooted program within your subconscious brain. So it's kind of like your whole personality literally is developed from a trauma response. And that's what's really crazy. So this is why, you know, people can have the same problem and manifest the same bad luck and bad toxic relationships over and over and over again, because they don't realize that they're literally playing out the same trauma subconsciously from their own brain. Because your subconscious controls 95% of your actions. And when you're between the ages of 0 and 7, you're literally under hypnosis, because your brain is in a completely different brain state until you reach the age of 7, 8. So it's basically just being hypnotized and brainwashed by whatever energy, programs and teachings that it is exposed to during those ages. But trauma can happen, of course, to anyone at any age, no matter what it is. So with trauma, of course, there are many different types of ways that you can heal it. Even just sometimes, of course, bettering your diet is the first thing. Taking up meditation, of course, will help alleviate it a bit. But sometimes, depending on the trauma, it will take more than that. And this is where you need to get therapy, you know, go to even doing breathing exercises. There's so many different things. Hypnotherapy is probably one of the best ways to heal trauma. If you find someone who's really good at it, because they can tap in and rewire the brain really quickly. This is where, you know, subliminal programming will really be effective as well. So listening to something whilst you sleep for about 30 days, something that will basically rewire the brain. But there are so many different ways that you can do it, even spell work, you know, there's so many different ways. But just trying your best to live on a high vibrational lifestyle will always be the first thing that you need to do. So really choosing to heal, because a lot of people who go through trauma, they get stuck there and then they don't want to heal. They think they do, but they don't. So they actually don't have the intention of healing. They will literally choose to completely self-sabotage themselves even further. So instead of seeking out help, they'll, you know, won't express themselves. They'll isolate. Instead of seeking out to do things that better them, they'll run to substances, so drugs, alcohol. They'll try to suppress it and they'll try to comfort themselves in a toxic way. And this is where you have to be really strict with yourself and realize that that doesn't work. This is where, you know, spiritual maturity comes into play. This is where opening your third eye and really having that spiritual awakening helps with all this, because you'll realize that that just does not work. You have to really be responsible, accountable and mature. But at the same time, you know, you need to be soft with yourself. So it's having that balance of taking action and that tough love, but then that compassion and that empathy for yourself. So with the empathy, you know, that's allowing yourself to grieve, cry, scream it out, have healthy boundaries, you know, self-love. This is where the self-love comes into play. So many people, you know, repress themselves. They don't allow themselves to get angry or cry or do whatever. And then this emotion is what, again, makes them sick. It builds up in their system and their nervous system will never calm down. So it's all connected, all three are connected. So this is why I was saying in my previous video why it's so important to express your anger in a healthy way. To really, you know, in a sober state, take account of your emotions. Really do the shadow work. This is what shadow work is facing your inner demons, facing that inner darkness head on, no matter how much it scares you. Of course, this can be a very long process, but it can get better. And in much more rarer cases, sometimes people can go through all this because of black magic, like I've said in other videos. Sometimes it can be a curse, you know, evil eye, hexes from other people. And that's kind of like thoughts, it goes into that category. Because what people need to know is when someone puts a hex on you, that energy, that hex, attacks your mind. Because your mind is the most powerful thing in existence. So I won't get into that just yet, but check out my other videos to do with curses and hexes, and I will be doing another one on that, on how to break them further. But this is again why you just need to go within on your own journey, get help, and really try to analyze and seek out what is the main catalyst that is causing your sickness, mentally, physically, or spiritually, and also blockages, etc. So I hope this video helps you. Please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell down below. If you want one-to-one guidance with myself, I do offer Oracle Tarot readings, so do check that out. It's in the description box down below. And please be aware that I do not ever message people or DM you, especially on Instagram, asking you for readings, because unfortunately there has been some fake profiles. I never do that. So all of my readings are through my website or my Linktree link only. So please be aware of that. I do not do FaceTime, WhatsApp readings, none of that, okay, at all. They're on Zoom only, through my website, through my link. So please be aware of that and do check that out if you're interested. Also, I have a free third eye ebook which will help you open your third eye so you can tap into your intuition, get more clarity on what you need to heal, etc. And of course, I do have my Patreon that has just opened, like I said. So if you want to join, then I will link it down below in the description box. And with my Patreon, I will be uploading one exclusive video every single week per month, as well as my YouTube videos. So if you want more content, more help, and a nice community, then please join, and I'll see you over there. Until next time, my loves, lots of love, lots of light. Ahimsa.